chart?
Yeah.
Okay, turn to the chart. You got it? Key is where it
Next
says
page.
character chart.
Yep.
About in the middle. Now, let me tell you where this came out of. Have you ever had kids where they will come into your room and they're doing their material and it has characters and they'll really do it pretty well, and then they'll come back the next day and they're doing something else and you have no idea what they're doing. And you're saying, well, what happened? What about yesterday? Well, I'm still doing the same thing. Well, no, you're not. You know, the whole idea that when a kid goes from one round to the next and they come out and they say, I just couldn't get into it. Have you heard that before? That drives me crazy. What do you mean you can't get into it? We got up at 5 o'clock and came here all this way for you not to be able to get into it. And so this is something that you have in front of you that I had put together, and the main reason for putting it together was we need to be able to, in a clinical manner, take the characters apart and say for every one of these aspects, what are you after? Or the coach and the kid, here's what we should be after. This is the pragmatic side of interp. And then when they come in and they're doing an aspect, and by the way, before I forget, this is advice for work sessions. In work sessions, I never work with any more than maybe 1 or 2 minutes of material. Because if it's wrong for a minute or 2, you can bet it's going to be wrong for 8 or 10. And so let's get 1 minute right, and then we'll add to it by maybe 30 seconds or so. That gives the kid confidence, because now in a cumulative manner, they are beginning to build in skills. All right, so if you look at the chart right across the top, this is what you are after. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Joe Paulzine or John Hoffmeister, you'll see probably coming up, or my son Joe Wycoff, who was at Chesterton. We all did the same thing. So you say, well, wait a minute, Joe's awfully good. Did he do one of these? Yes, he did. He did a chart. Do they always want to do a chart? No, they don't, until they begin to see, wait, this stuff really pays off. Now, some people will really get into this. They'll do their chart and they'll do it in colors. They'll color their chart. They'll have little initials and everything all over it. That's okay. You go ahead and let them do it. This is what you're after. Look at the categories across the top. Yeah. What does rate mean? Tell me.
Speed at which you speak.
Rate is the speed at which you speak, right? So if I put rate here, and what's pitch? High or low. So I can put pitch here. So I know the speed at which I speak, and then also the highs and the lows. Kids have to know what their range really is. And a lot of them don't. They have one main range that they go to. And so your job is to get them out of that so that you can discover and have them discover. If not, their voice will scare them to death whenever they get in front of people. And so this is what we would work on. I would say something like, this is the speed at which you can speak. This is the speed at which you can speak. This is the speed at which you can speak. I'd speed up. This is the speed at which you can speak. This is the speed at which you can speak. This is the speed at which you can speak. There will be a time in every cutting when the slowest that you will go needs to be utilized. I need for you to listen. Right? That could be a line from a play. It's not, I need for you to listen. Because what happens, like Pam had said, for drama, if you speak the same speed the entire way through, if all your characters are talking with the same speed, what happens after a while? What? We don't pay any attention because they all kind of run together. What are you after doing? You're trying to delineate the number of characters you have, and each one needs to be separate. Now what about for pitch? This is the highest that, now remember, you never go falsetto. Even for people doing something in humor, that's a real risk. This, now listen to this. This. The highest note, I need to be able to sing it. I need to be able to sing it. And this might be the lowest that I would go. So my range, I know that's the height. Here, that's the low. My objective, folks, is I've got to hit notes everywhere in between. Beware when you're working with girls, because they will do this. All right, now I want you to get, how would you speak normally? Well, this is the way I talk, Mr. Wycoff. Well, how high can you go? Well, I can go this high, here. What's the lowest you can go? I can go this low. No, you've got a whole lot more of a voice than you think. And so getting girls, not to classify as girls, but out of that range is really something that is a problem, because they will have confidence in their voice, particularly if they're going to be doing 2 or 3 characters. Now, this is something to keep in mind, particularly about pitch or rate or volume. What does volume mean? There are times when I need to give volume in a cutting. And there are times I need to be able to whisper. I have an extreme on each side, right? What about with the eyes? What are the extremes with eyes? What could you do? What? Say it. You could cross your eyes. Well, I suppose you could. But what about this? What is this? This is what? White eye. Or I could be here. That is squinty. Now, that is, there are times in the material when I need to have eyes like this. There are times in the material when I need to have eyes like this. What's the point? You see the range in there? Okay, so we have pitch and rate. We have volume. What else is on the sheet?
Tone.
The tone. Pam's going to talk on.
Well, that just is, it's the nasal. So what he's talking about here is within the piece you want to have range, but on the chart you can also try to get your characters to fit into a specific range for distinctive characterization of voice. So the kids are going to map out who's the highest pitch, who's the medium pitch, who's the lowest pitch. But then there might be a more nasal voiced one that's going to talk a little bit more like this, but then there might be somebody that's more melodic and a little lower. So the point being, you're trying with the tone, and so I have on here resonant, nasal, breathy. Someone that's going to talk with a lot of air when they speak. So breathy, husky, a warbling, which should be W-A, I believe, or an accent. So we go through the chart, which has the character names next to it, and the kids go through on the voice, the pitch, the volume, the rate, and try to delineate who's fitting into what spectrum. Because usually what happens in the piece is everybody's pretty similar, except maybe the voice is higher, lower, medium, but there's no breathiness, there's nothing really unique to them. So I think that's all part of what they have there. And the last one is articulation, where you have people that are very crisp, but then they're kind of a squawkier voice person too. So that goes in terms of body, and that goes in terms of voice.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah. Now, this is something to keep in mind, because I want to do the body positions. That's a big one. That one, and I want to mention this before I forget, the most overlooked part of interpretation is the legs.
Yeah.
The most overlooked part of interpretation is the legs. They'll do a lot with the face, but they forget about their legs. And when I get the commitments and meaning the word and so forth, we'll talk about that. But you don't ever give away this part of your body. Now, if we're working on the chart and we know that we have our extremes, rate and pitch, we also have that for vocal and eyes, etc. You need to understand that there are extremes all the way out here for each of the terms. That means that there are choices. Well, life is nothing but a series of choices, most of them wrong. But the right one is out there. The same thing is true in a term, and so you have to look for that, right? Folks, this is where your kids will want to go. Right there. Don't they? They want to go where it's safe. This is the safe zone. My comment to the kids when they're in the safe zone is, listen, don't forget one thing with interp. You have to make a fool of yourself. You're not going to like everything that you do, but you've got to get comfortable with that. Coaches, you have to be able to demonstrate. Who was the guy I talked about last night that when he's cutting cards or whatever, you got to sit down with the kids and you have to get it done too. And so when you're talking with the kids about, I want to see what your pitch range is, you have to be able to try and do that with them. What will it do? It will make them laugh, right? They'll laugh at you for doing that, but then it's not so stupid when they have to do it too. The saying for this that I always use is, champions play on the edges. The champions play out here, folks. The people who go out early, they're really the ones right there in the safe zone. Now, this cutting that we did for Joe Paulzine that you just watched, this whole thing started with his ability to do what character? Mm-hmm. Which one? Harry Carey. How many of you know who Harry Carey is? He used to do Harry Carey at school. Yeah, you know, and he would do Harry Carey, and he would act like he was carrying a Budweiser or whatever the beer may have been when he was announcing for the Cubs, and everybody would just go crazy. And so we talked about you need to put that character in a cutting. And so when we found this play, it was designed that, you know, that Harry character is going to be Balthazar that we're going to use, right? If you think about the chart now, who was the one who probably had the voice that was the most articulate? The teacher, right? The teacher. Where would you put Thomas? What do you think Thomas would be? Where was his rate? Was he faster or slower? Or do you think that he's just about average?
A little bit on the, at least.
Yeah, but didn't he have kind of a nasal quality when he would talk to portray the fact that he was young, right? And so, now the other characters that he had in there, he also does one later on where he's like a Japanese ninja, and so he plays that particular role. But you know, that's something that he would add as an other, or maybe for the tone. But we use the chart to track. Now, for example, whoops, that's really your glasses. Where's mine?
Which one?
Where are my glasses?
Glasses
Right here.
Yeah, there you go.
If I could see, I could find it. Okay, what would you put for pitch? If I have a list of 3 characters, and by the way, if I'm doing a monologue or something, your character for a monologue doesn't stay the same for the entire piece, right? That would move, and so I might do 2 different aspects or 3 different aspects of that one character. The pitch would be what? High and low. All you're after are your 2 extremes. So one character, well, that would be the character who would be speaking the highest, and this would be the character, that would be the person who would be speaking the lowest. What about the rate? Who speaks the fastest in the piece? Who speaks the lowest? So all you would have is an F for fastest and an S for slowest. You say, what's in the middle? Well, you can fill the middle in, but get your extremes so that you know you get that done. Volume, what are the 2 extremes you would use? Loudest and softest. Tone, that would be what Pam had talked about. Articulation, what is that? The what? Clarity, the crispness, and next of all what? Be one who slurs, maybe has sloppy articulation. What about eyes? Widest, right? And squintiest. Tension, I'm going to show you, and then the body position I want to do for you. All of you right now, take your hand and hold it up in front of you. Now, a little at a time, begin to squeeze it. Harder. 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 Now squeeze it as hard as you can. That's tension. Who is the character in your piece who is like this? Who's the character in your piece that is like this? Who is the character in your piece who is either like this, or there are times when your character is that? Tension, like legs, is so often overlooked, where I can have a character almost the same voice, but the character has a very low tension. Whereas someone else can almost use the same voice, but the tension is totally different. I change the character by changing my tension variation. And now when I go from this character speaking to this one responding back, folks, my voice didn't change. Did you hear that? So when you say, what about doing characters? This character can respond and I can answer back. And my tension level is what made the character different. And so often, we don't pay any attention to that, or the kids don't. So you have this character, even if it's someone who might be, let's say it's a monologue, and they're very confident, but there does come a time in their confidence when they think back and they didn't like who they were. I've gone from this kind of attention level, right, to that kind of attention level. That creates not only a mood change, but I can create another character if I want to. The most overrated part of character building is in the voice. The most overrated. It's not how many different voices can you do, because you can do characters by changing a lot of different things. Okay, now I need all of you to stand. Yeah. We needed 3 hours, not an hour and a half. Okay, give yourself some room. You're going to do this with me. Mr. Wycoff, how do I do characters? I came up with a system a long time ago, and I wanted to give it to you, share it with you. You have to do this with the kids. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about doing a number of characters or it's one character changing maybe throughout. Remember the numbers, 1, 2, and 3. Everything starts with the numbers from the bottom, from the floor up. So I want you to think in terms of knees, shoulders, neck. Knees, shoulders, neck. If you are going to be a 1, each one of these gets a number. Each one of these gets a number, a 1, 2, or a 3. A 1 is, I'm myself. All of you just be yourself. That's how you stand, that's how my shoulders are, that's how my neck is, right? On the chart, because in your piece, someone is probably a main character themselves, right? That's a 1, 1, 1. That's a 1, 1, 1. Your kids have to write that on the chart. Now, what is a 2? A 2 means now I'm going to get tall, but I have to do this now for all 3 parts. I lock my legs, lock them. My shoulders, I get tall. Now, not like this unless you're doing humor. All right? It just means I get tall. My chest comes out, and my neck is taut. You see this character? And I've got to be able to walk. I've got to be able to walk. All of you take a few steps. You feel that? Now walk back. Are you back? Are you tall? You can't do a 2, that's a 2, right? Start from the bottom up. 2, 2, 2. You can't go to a 2 and then while you're talking, what did your 2 go to? A 1, right? So I'm a 2, 2, 2. So a character can talk. I can be a general. I can be talking to you and I'm a 2, 2, 2. And the 2, 2, 2 is going to be talking to the guy who's a 1, 1, 1. I go 1, 1, 1. Why do you say that? Because do you see my shoulders move right here? But it's a 2, 2, 2. All right? Go to a 1. Go to a 2. All 3 parts, right? I'm going to talk on that. If I am a 3, everything relaxes. 3 knees, 3 shoulders in, 3 chin down. Go to a 1, go up to a 2. So I have this character talking, this one responding back, and this one's got some questions. Do you see that? I got a 3, 3, 3. Then you say, well, that's great, Joe. What happens if I have 4 characters? Now you got to play Mr. Potato Head. Because not all characters are easy 1s, 2s, and 3s. For example, if I'm going to play Lenny in Of Mice and Men, how many of you have read Of Mice and Men? Lenny, you might say, I got to think it through. Lenny might have, Joe, 2 legs. What's that mean if it's 2 legs? Lock. He might have 2 shoulders. What's that mean? Because isn't he a big guy? But he might have a 3 neck. What's a 3 mean? Relax. So now, remember, I've got to be able to move. So Lenny could be talking to you right here. What's he have? He has 2 legs, 2 shoulders, right? But his neck is a 3. On the chart, you would put 2, 2, 3. So when a kid comes in and he's doing Lenny, and all of a sudden Lenny is talking here, no, that's not what's on the chart. Look at me, George. Now I'm a 3, and like a 1-2 combination. And that's when you say, now wait a minute, your numbers, that's not what we did yesterday. And if he says, and you say, but you know what, I like that one better, then change the chart. Think of it this way. When is it wrong? It's only wrong when you look at all your characters and 2 characters have what? The same numbers. The same numbers. And if every one of your characters they all have 2 legs, that's bad because you got 2 other numbers that you could be using. So someone saying, I don't know who's talking, you put yourself in that range when that happens. So you guys understand that? Okay, good, have a seat. This is the chart. Do you understand the chart? Mm-hmm. Kids love to fill that out. It's good for you guys to do that with them. The body positions, I'm going to mention this, okay? For the body positions, don't have your kids do too many things at one time. They can't do too many things at one time. I would have, this is Joe Posey, the kid you just saw. I would have Joe come in, we would have a list of characters, and all he would do is he'd write them on the board. He would face the board, not me, and I would simply give him character names. Bam, bam, bam. And he would go, go, go. He would just pop. That's all he didn't say a word. He would just do the body positions, and I would do them in order. And we would do them in order, and we would do them in order. And then, what would I do? Now I mix them up. He's still not saying anything, but after a while they get, all right, let's go back and try it again. You can't do too many things at one time. And so once he had the physicalization down, now you know what we can add? 1 line. We add 1 line. They don't even have to make sense. It can be any line to play. Where now we're going to add things where, go to the character and give this line. Now I'm looking at things like rate, and pitch, and volume, and eyes. I can even start with rate and then add pitch. But you see how it's cumulative? And you're only working on a small section. But that is how you can get the chart overall to work with you. Work in small increments. Folks, the only time I really ever heard I'm not after how kids do at the beginning of the year. What are you after? I'm after the end of the year. That's when we're doing sectionals, whatever, all qualifying. The tournaments that happen before that, those are important, but this is a building block. I never heard an entire cutting. The only time I would hear an entire cutting is if we were timing. If we had to do something for timing. But besides that, it was going to work on this 2-minute section for tomorrow. That will be the focus. And you know what your kids will do? They will build in confidence because they know they're doing it correctly when you're working with them in your work session. And in addition to that, you will feel good because there's something that you're doing that is analytical, that makes sense, and you know that it's working. Okay? The chart was critical for me.
It's really empowering to the kids too, because they get to make choices again. So, and then you can actually have a discussion, as opposed to, I think someone said, why is it that I'm doing all the thinking about everything that has to happen? If they say concretely, I need to make sure, especially like, let's think in a humor, you know, I've got to make sure my characters are different. They're going to make logical choices, and they might be different ones, but now they've at least made choices, as opposed to the whole practice period. Are you guys messing around with options? They come in with homework, then you get to be able to check what those choices are.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I think, Joe, you're going to do the key terms. So you're next on the two most important terms.
Yeah, all right, John?
No, this was before John, if we didn't get to John.
Okay, all right.
So in terms of the point we're gonna set up here is, now you've physically done it. You've physically gotten the voice, vocally gotten the voice. What are you gonna do with the actual feelings? This is the word that he likes to use instead of commitments, and there's another one coming up after that. So this is about doing the interpret part of the words.
Yeah, the chart, that's critical. The next two terms are, is lunch at 1?
Yeah.
Is that true? Shake your head yes? Right? Okay. I want to get through these two. So if it's just a little before 1, I don't care. I want to make sure you hear this. So so we have the chart, and then it's commitments, and then the big one.
These terms are not in the packet, so they're only on the slide.
Beating the word. Chart, commitments, beating the word. Definition. Commitment is making visible a dedication to an attitude or emotion. And please don't tell me, drama teachers, that you can't play attitudes or emotions. You certainly can. It's dedication to an attitude or emotion until it becomes visible. Now, if I am making commitments, that means that not only have I memorized the line, but what am I after on that line? There has to be some objective that I have. I mean, it's like taking the GPS. You got to program in where you want to go, or you don't know if you ever got there, right? So for a commitment on giving this particular line, what are you after emotionally? Does that make sense? And where you put the commitment in, depending on the flow of what you have for the particular line or character, will probably change. And so this is what you have kids do, is the cluers and doers.
No, but let's do, you want to do the beating the word first?
Okay, because they go together.
Yeah.
Beating the word is this. If I talk about a commitment, that is going to be my emotional or attitudinal choice. Beating the word is on placement. Where do I put it? Beating the word and inserting the commitment is all nonverbal. Folks, you do your real acting in the silence. You don't do it on the word. You do it non-verbally. And it happens often just like that. I put in a commitment and I beat the word with every punctuation mark. That means primarily with the period capital, with a dash, semicolon, colon, comma. I have to stick something in there. This is, I think, not only a difficult thing to do in interp, this will make a world of difference for your orators. For me, working with oratory and working with interp